Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Gulag Café. I believe that Comrade Chris might have a few opening things to say to everyone before we get started this evening with part two of last week. Comrade
Yes,
Chris?
good evening, Tovarishi. Welcoming you to another episode of glorious Gulag Cafe, being streamed live from UK Soviet Socialist Republic, best country in the world. Everybody says so because anyone who says otherwise is in Gulag. We have marvelous selection for you tonight on part two of how we engineered beautiful choice environment. Yes, back in history before rise of total socialism, we first had nudge theory, which was a beautiful thing where we gently encouraged with kicks and rat kebabs the people to adopt more healthy choices to enable socialism deep inside their hearts and their colons. So pull up a bit of charred wood, perhaps rest yourself on a broken and outdated solar panel. Please beware of glass shards in your keister. And enjoying very much the Gulag Cafe. Please do not fall asleep. Ivan will be walking around with cattle prod to ensure compliance and attentiveness. Thank you very much. Yeah. So fucking. So last week we did the UK's new policy on green stuff, and this is all sort of seeped in nudge theory. And I actually had like a bunch of extra links that I was going to do to talk about nudge theory, but instead, my general sarcasm and seething was such that we only got through the first article. So this week, I thought we would just explore a bit about nudge theory, where it came from. I haven't read the book. I don't have time, right? You know how fucking busy I am. But
You have been cranking out the content the last couple months. It's true.
I am the content factory.
Before we get further, why don't you shield that awesome video that Saydays helped you work on?
Oh yeah. So in case any of you have not checked it out, I have done a video on Lysistrata and the 4B feminist movement. Wait, you can find it on my channel, Distributed Warfare. Pretty cool name, eh? And it's basically about Lysistrata was a play by Aristophanes back in 31 BC, 300 BC, long time ago. And it basically sort of illuminates that men and women haven't really changed at all, right? Like you can look at this play from like fucking 300 BC and everyone's still making the same jokes, right? Everyone still has the same complaints, right? And it really just throws into sharp highlight how crazy.
It's like that play is like a 2,000-year-old. Women be shopping, huh, fellas? Like, yeah, it's basically what it is. Yeah.
It's hilarious, right? And it's even more hilarious today because everyone is like running around pretending that human nature isn't a thing because everyone's steeped in social constructivism. Human nature is a thing, right? We are basically the same people, same type of people that we were 2,000 years ago, right? You're not gonna get around it. Oh, we're different now. My right side of history. Bugger off. So yeah, I've put it in the chat. Check it out. I've had really good feedback. You liked it, didn't you?
Yeah, I watched it. It was very good. I highly recommend. It's interesting. You'll laugh a little bit, but most importantly, it will show you that all of this, not even just communist, but like going back to the progressive era of 200-300 years ago of thought, of Gnosticism, of liberal ideals. It's a bunch of wishful thinking to want to change the nature of man. And whether you believe in evolution or that our God or gods made us the way we are, you can look at this play and you can see that the same human tropes, the same human foibles, follies, and stereotypes between the sexes, it's the same human nature and the same personalities in Greece 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So it really does open your eyes to just how fake and empty all of this pie in the sky, we can change the nature of man thoughts are. It just doesn't work. Yep.
It's kind of a white pill as well, because
it is.
Right? Like we are still the same, right? Like you know, they've tried to change man so many times, right? The new Soviet man, it always comes, oh, just this time, bros, we'll change human nature. No, you won't. No, you won't. Oh, but what about genetic engineering? I doubt it, right? Like, I mean, I know they're developing like new, potentially horrifying technologies, right? But look, if MK Ultra couldn't change human nature, I don't think they can do it personally, right?
And look at the last 3 or 4 generations of emasculization, demasculinization. All of the hormones and chemicals in food just wiped out testosterone levels in men, messed up women's hormones, 50 years of birth control pills, feminism, all this other anti-white mind poison that's been put in everybody, and nothing has changed about human nature. Nothing.
Yep.
Like, it's just, you can't do it. Like the harshest Stasi, the staunchest mind control of public education, as much physical and mental poison as they put in us, they haven't taken the first step towards creating the new man. We're all still the humans that God made us, or if you believe in evolution or pagan gods, how that stuff made us. We're still the same.
Yep. And when they do impose this kind of stuff, everyone just pretends until it goes away. Right, you're not doing real change, and this is actually quite apropos to our subject tonight. Nudge theory,
indeed, right? It is. That's why I thought we should start with that.
Nice one, Yiz. So shall we ensmallen? So nudge theory is basically this idea that was proposed by Cass Sunstein and Richard Thaler. Who are both Jewish, like just why, like all the, like
it is remarkable how how the Jew hating Spurgs, they do have a few accurate talking points, and one of them is it is remarkable how so much of this anti-white mind cancer comes from a particular aspect of Ashkenazi Kabbalah mental Jewry. It's very surprising. Like I went on a week.
I've been doing a bit of research actually on Jewish philosophy and mysticism, and I think that it's actually partly inherent to some of the sort of like philosophical framing of Judaism generally. This idea of tikkun olam, and that you can heal the world, that you can perfect the world, which are ideas that you don't really see in Christianity or Islam, right?
Yeah, and like that guy that made that interesting early aughts movie or late 90s movie called Pi, about that Jewish guy who thought he could understand the universe and see God through mathematics and numbers, and ended up going mad and drilling a hole in his head and killing himself or whatever. Like that, I think that was made by a Jewish guy. And I think it's because he knows that there are certain Jewish people that really take this, divine math and Talmudic stuff so seriously, it makes them crazy. And they do crazy evil shit because of it. Yeah.
There was a philosopher, oh my God, I forget his name, but he hung out with Bertrand Russell. And he wrote this amazing book that was basically exactly what you're trying to describe, right? He tried to sort of understand the entire universe through philosophy, and he just lost his mind.
Yeah.
Right. And like, if from a religious point of view, you might, the Christian in me basically wants to say, well, you tried to understand the mind of God and you failed, and it drove you insane, right? Maybe you shouldn't have started, right? Maybe you should have.
I think that's why people that take occultism seriously and try to talk to demons and stuff go mad too.
Oh yeah. Oh well, yeah, exactly. But maybe you should have just accepted, to get all Lovecraftian here, that there are things that man is not meant to know, right? And there is a good reason why man is not meant to know them, right? Don't sort of suck up to the grimoire. Don't, cradle the cyclopean, figurine, right? Like don't, don't investigate the holes in the walls, right? Madness lies there. Like, oh, but what about the secrets of the universe? Yeah, but you're treading on shaky ground. And I think, like, honestly, that
because before you know it, you'll want to make the whole world kill itself and, bite penises off babies. Maybe you shouldn't do that.
No, yes, we're trying to make the world better. It's just that the world winds up killing itself every time we do that. And this is this sort of like weird kind of thing. It's like this urge to perfect the thing winds up destroying it, right? It's like, imagine if you're like, you've got a fruit tree, right? And like, we're gonna perfect this fruit tree, right? And you make it a little bit better, and you're like, oh well, that's nice. We've increased its fruit output by like 20%. And you're like, those are rookie numbers, right? We need to increase its output by like a gajillion %. And eventually you just wind up destroying the whole thing. So So yeah, I don't know. I mean, this whole concept of like nudge, I was doing a bit of reading before, is based on this idea. Check this out. Called libertarian paternalism, right? That's the actual thing, right? So
Okay.
it's like how can we still do the chicken olam, right? But still think of ourselves as libertarians, right? And the idea that they hit on, right, is basically like lying and manipulating people and like hacking their brains, right? And
Yeah.
being like, well, you know, we're not making you choose anything, right? We're just altering what they call the choice environment, right? It's incredibly manipulative, and it's so patronizing, and it undermines like sort of many, well, fundamentally Christian ideas, right, of the sanctity of
Hmm.
the soul and free will and all this kind of other stuff, to which they would reply, oh, but you know, do you really have free will? We've discovered all of these like hacks in your brain that like indicate that you don't have true free will. Well, then maybe you should maximize what free will we have left. Have you ever considered that? For some weird reason, they never go that way, right? And say, because we've discovered these hacks in your brain, right, we're going
I,
to design an environment that reduces the influence of those
I
hacks
think I
and
think this is
maximizes free will.
I think this is directly tied to why the the what's the right word? Why the phenotype of spiteful mutant is what it is. The people above the spiteful mutants that create the spiteful mutant army that want this stuff, I think that none of them are actually that smart. They're smart enough to think that they should be in charge, and they don't like that other people are more creative, more ingenious, more innovative than they are, and have a higher capacity for things than they do. And they believe they are the limit, that they are the apex of human thought and capability, when they're definitely not. And
I
I
would,
think
I would,
that's where that comes from, I think.
I would take the Dungeons and Dragons interpretation that these people have high intelligence but very low wisdom. And
I don't think they're that high intelligence either.
no, well, I mean, you know, in sort of the pure sense, right? Like, you know, oh yeah, you know, you might know how to do all this math, right? But you don't know how to talk to people, right? Like, you know, you might know how to open a portal to an alternate dimension, but you're not wise enough to be like, oh, well, maybe that would be a bad idea. If you get what I'm saying, you know what I mean, right? Like, um, so we get into nudge theory, right? So as I was saying, nudge theory is about hacking the sort of parts of the brain, these sort of quirks in human behavior, much of which was elucidated in that book, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, right? And sort of
Mhm.
trying to change human behavior. Now, as far as I'm aware, I haven't read the book. I don't have the time, right? I do have Grok though, right? New version of
Mhm.
Grok is great, by the way. Would highly recommend you try it out. And it does not seem like there was much agonizing about whether this was a good idea or not, right? What happened was that published this book in Sunstein and Thaler published this book in about 2008, and within a few years, basically it sort of took off everywhere, right? And there were suddenly nudge units in all of these different like governments all around the world, because essentially, right, all of the governments were like, oh, you know, this is a great idea, right? Like we can manipulate people essentially without them knowing for the best possible reason.
Yeah.
We only want to do good things, right?
We just want
And
to limit their choices and make sure that they can only think in the avenues that we allow. I'm sure that won't hurt society at all.
And this is also very anti-Christian,
Mhm.
right? Because from the Christian perspective, at least the Orthodox Christian perspective, you can't eliminate sin. You also can't eliminate poverty, right? The poor will always be with you. And it
Just like we
attempts,
talked about Monday, you can't eliminate vice.
yes, no, exactly, right? And it
Yeah.
attempts to do so actually make things worse, right? It's
Yeah.
one of those like weird things where, you know, the more you try and fight the bad thing, the stronger you make it. I'm pretty sure there's some myth.
Well,
Chat,
that's why
does anyone?
in Southern Christianity around here, we have a saying, hate the sin, not the sinner. And it
Mhm.
comes from that place of folk wisdom of men are going to be horn dogs, women are going to want to gossip and cheat. everybody's going to want to drink and do drugs when they're having a bad day. And if you hate people who do that, you might as well hate yourself, because we all have weakness. Hate the sin and shame the sin to pull people away from doing those things. But if you just start hating everybody that does bad stuff, well, eventually that finger's going to point at you. So don't be like that.
Well, yes, but this is even more insidious, right? Because you've essentially got the government, right, which has an incredible amount of coercive power, deciding that for reasons usually economic, right, to be perfectly frank. But I think again, there's like a bit of the tick and all in there. There's like, oh, you know, what if we could make a perfect world, right? You know, the right side of history, this thing has no place in our society. All of this kind of language, right, suggests this perfectibility of man, or this perfectibility of society, right? And it's bullshit, right? Like you're just making things worse. And philosophically, to claim that you have a democracy whilst doing this is doubly subversive, right? Because you have just assumed basically, right, that people are stupid, they've got no free will, they can't make any choices, right? And so nudge theory has now spread around the world, right? Now, like a lot of these sort of things, when they were first using it, it worked pretty well, right? Because one of the things that I've noticed about persuading populations is that if it's something that people, you know, they don't really care that much about, right, then you can get pretty good results. Okay. So, you might get a 20% reduction in whatever behavior you're targeting, right? But those people that you're targeting, they weren't really into that thing that much, right? Like, say you're trying to get them to eat more vegetables. They're already pretty much predisposed to eating vegetables, right? Now, the government gets the result, oh, we've had a 20% increase in eating vegetables. And instead of saying that's great, right, we're going to leave it there, right? They're like, well, let's do it again, right? Let's aim for 40%. Let's aim for 60%. And then you start getting all these weird paradoxical results. Now, we saw this very, very clearly in the COVID pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. The way that governance has changed in this regard, right? Okay, so the way that government used to work, right, is either they would just come out and force you to do a thing, right? They'd be like, right, we're doing this, right? Which is at least truthful, right? They come out and be like, because of this, we're doing this, you now have to do this, right? And if you don't do this, we're going to like coerce you. And instead now they're like trying to persuade you, right? But as we saw with the vaccine, they were never, like, persuasion was never the goal, right? The goal was hard compliance. They just started
and you even saw dozens of thousands of people just in America alone willingly walk away from careers to say no.
Yes.
And if that's the case, your subtle coercion is an utter failure at that point.
Oh, correct. Well, this is my point, right?
Yeah.
So you alter the choice environment. Don't you love living in a choice environment? Yes. Oh, I just feel so nurtured by the state to be viewed as like just a massive neurons manipulated.
I'm glad big mother government allows me to have some choices left.
Oh, I'm just so glad to have a choice environment.
Like, what kind of estrogen do I want to give my son? What age do I want to cut his dick off? Thank you, government.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Like,
thanks, government.
Do you want to pay like 45% of your income in taxation, right? Or do you want to pay the government and only pay like 44% taxation? Oh, the choice environment.
So many choices.
So as I was elucidating before, right? The first, 20% of people, right, who are, basically sort of like mush brained, they're like, they go get the vaccine. But because the goal from the start was to get everybody to do it, right? They just kept ramping it up and ramping it up and ramping it up. And a lot of people, as it started like getting ramped up, as everyone will remember, started exhibiting what is called reactance. Where is it?
There it is. Reactance and blowback.
Technically, in nudge theory, it's called blowback, right? But reactance is a concept from psychology, first formulated by Jack Brame in 1966, describing a motivational reaction where individuals resist perceived threats to their freedom or autonomy. It's a good description. That's exactly how I felt. When people feel manipulated, controlled, or pressured, even subtly, they may push back by doing the opposite of what is intended. In the context of nudge theory and libertarian paternalism, Reactance can lead to paradoxical outcomes or blowback, where the attempt to steer behavior backfires, resulting in people adopting contrary actions or attitudes, right?
Can you stop there a second?
Yes.
You can tell that these evil anti-white quote brainiacs who come up with this shit, you can tell that they're all antisocial, childless monsters. All that it takes to know this shit is to have a few kids or to like be a part of a community with children in it. You tell kids shit like this, they're like, I'll do the opposite. And it's like to me, this is just like bare bones common knowledge about human behavior. But these people are like, it's just beyond them because they're just so out of touch and so inhumanly psychopathic. They just don't understand any of this basic shit.
I think as well, the vast control over society that the modern world has, right? And the growth of, certain sort of technologies like, public relations, color theory, and all this kind of like other stuff that, was first in business, right? To like get you to buy stuff, right? Edward Bernays and all that kind of other stuff has Edward Bernays,
that was some
Freud,
of our
right?
first episodes of Empire of Lies, actually.
Yes, it was. Vance and the Hidden Persuaders. Yeah, good episode. Check it out. So yes, Freud and Bernays, again, also Jewish, right? Pioneered this, this sort of theory. Again, it's basically nudge theory, right? Just, it's just been revivified, right? This idea of the subtle manipulation of people for your own good. Except I would actually argue that Bernays was more honest, because Bernays was all just about, oh yeah, we just want to make more money, right? I think the idea of, we're going to like transform society is actually much worse. I believe there's a quote, oh my God, I forget who it was, but basically that a tyrant who just wants money or fame or power, right, can eventually be sated, right? Because there is a point at which they will gain enough money or power or fame, right? But a tyrant who desires to tyrannize for the good of, of the people that he's tyrannizing, it's effectively endless, because there is no end point, right? Things could always be better. Things could
the way I would
be
phrase
gooder.
it, the way I would phrase it is a selfish tyrant can be satiated. A benevolent tyrant cannot.
I think that's a very, very good. Yes. If anyone in chat knows who C.S. Lewis, thank you. Who was that guy?
Oh, that does sound like something C.S. Lewis would say. Yeah,
it's
you're
C.S.
right.
Lewis. My brain is just running on empty. Thank you, chat. You are my second brain.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, okay, so that's a bit of a summary. Let's have a look. This is Cass Sunstein here, and Richard Thaler, right? Two, very good looking. Physiognomy, bro. Physiognomy, right?
Physiognomy rarely lies, Chris.
Oh, mate. Now, Sunstein, interestingly enough, by the way, right, is married to Samantha Power, right, who was the head of USAID until she was removed. And I would go one step further. I think that nudge theory and this idea seeped deep into USA, and not just USAID, probably other foreign aid organizations all around the world.
I would go farther than that, Chris. I would go farther than that. I think that since USAID is not near as old as the knowledge of this phenomenon, just because he coined the term nudge theory and all of this, when was it? Like 15 years ago, something like that?
2008, yeah.
Yeah, so just because he coined that term then, I think that the people who want control knew this shit long before that. I think USAID was created with the sole purpose of doing this, even if they didn't have an actual, Ashkenazi phrase for it. I think that USAID was set up specifically to do this nudge, control, limit choices, influence people's minds type of shit. I think that was the sole reason that it was created and implemented.
Well, it is certainly suspicious that after publishing this book, all of a sudden, nudge units literally popped up in like hundreds of governments all around the world, right? And at first it was, it was going like quite well. They were like, oh, this is great. We can nudge the plebs with libertarian paternalism. It's such a dodge as well, right? Because a lot of so the example they give par excellence, right, is that okay, we change where the fruit is in the supermarket, so it's at eye level. Okay, right? So if you're just like wandering around half asleep, right, and you just reach for like whatever's in front of you, you're more likely to reach for the fruit than you are to reach for the Doritos. Okay,
Right.
right? So there's no actual economic downside or anything like that, right? There's no actual real coercion, right? But of course, governments being what they are, right, they couldn't leave it at that, right? And now, as we were detailing last week, nudge theory has drifted like straight into coercion, right? Which was already sort of like really in the wings of this idea of using tax policy to encourage and discourage certain behaviors, right? And nudge theory has now bonded with this, right? And I think a lot of governments just sort of like this idea, you know what I mean, right? Because quite frankly, you know, when you're pretending to be a democracy, but you're not really, right? You enjoy the legitimacy that calling yourself a democracy brings you, right? You enjoy being able to like blame the people when things go wrong and be like, well, you know, you voted for it. Schrodinger's Gaffney, nudge theory was created in Frankfurt in the early 20th century. You got a source for that, bro? Can you source me, bro? I was not aware of that. I'm curious.
It's he's talking about what I like, just because the term was officially coined like 15 years ago or whatever. Like I was saying, what this is has been around for a lot longer.
No,
I think
I'm familiar with Frankfurt School. I'm just curious about
I mean, obviously,
you know, what part of Frankfurt School he's talking about specifically.
okay. Well, maybe he'll share us in chat. I think he was just saying Frankfurt School instead of something else.
Oh yes, I get what you're saying.
Right.
I get what you're saying. Right.
But while we have a break, we did get a paid chat on Entropy. I'd like to read.
It's paid chats.
Yes, yeah. It's from the music artist Arakeen Green Moon, who graces us with his dollars upon occasion. For $5 US, thank you, Green Moon. He says, "Hi, Yiz, happy to see you. I have a question for you and Newsfist. Is a monster made by blood alone, or the path that they have known? I appreciate the rhyme." And the answer is column A and column B. We are all a product of our genetics and the biospirit that we share. But also, the path matters. For example, I have certain traits that if I was coached differently, if I didn't have good parenting, if I didn't go to the good combat school I went to, if I didn't have harsh military family, I would have turned out much differently because of my genetic propensities and genetic failings. Everyone is a mix of nature and nurture. It's not just one or the other. I do think that when we talk about these particularly anti-white, manipulative Ashkenazi Jewish people, it's very obvious. I'm not talking about all Jews everywhere. I'm not talking even about all Ashkenazis. I'm not even talking about all New York Jews. There's an element to whatever the expression or facet of the Jewish lens that's in these psychopathic, manipulative Ashkenazi types that manifests as this particular kind of disgusting evil. And there are many Jewish people that know this and talk about it. Like I've even talked to some of them personally. You can, consult Bobby Fischer, for example. Like there are many people who know this. It's just become very unfashionable, or in some cases illegal, to talk about it candidly and earnestly like we do. So whenever you hear me talk about, oh, this is particularly a Muslim problem or a Pakistani problem or a Jewish problem, I never mean that those people are evil by birth and they can't help it. I don't think that's the case with almost anyone, unless you're born like, a real psychopathic murder monster that wants to, skin women or whatever. I think those people are probably messed up from birth and there's something truly wrong in their brains. But, maybe even those people could be helped with the right circumstances growing up. I don't know. But I think that for the vast majority of everyone, you're a mix of nature and nurture. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. If it was all nature, redemption would not be possible. Right? If it was all nurture, then social constructivism would work, and it clearly doesn't. Right? If everything was nurture, then you could import, a million Bamalians and have them integrate perfectly, but you can't. Right? And the fact that some Bamalians will in fact integrate is also, indicative of the fact that there is a certain amount of nurture. Yeah, everyone's been debating nature versus nurture for ages, and it's clearly both, right? And I think it's probably a bell curve. And I reckon you probably got some people who are like basically all nature, right? Like, like complete psychopaths or serial killers or whatever. And then you've got other people who it's, I guess, are probably complete nurture, who are just essentially blank slates. But I imagine these would be rare sort of tail end examples. The vast majority of people are stuck in the middle, fighting between nature and nurture.
Now, I do want to address a comment that Serge brought up here. He says it's nature. Stop lying to yourselves. I'm wishing the best. No, I'm speaking the truth, man. I'm speaking the truth. Our nature determines a great deal about us. I'm not saying that it's mostly nurture. I don't think that's true. I think that it is also nurture. I think that the vast majority of what determines our propensities, our capacities, our tendencies is all genetic. We are born with that template. But the experiences that you encounter along the way, the advice that you receive, that can help steer you around certain obstacles that might keep you from tripping up and getting involved in drugs or prison or prostitution at a young age, which definitely changes people. So that's why I say that it is also nurture. But I do think that the vast majority of all of who we are and our potential is genetic.
And might I add that nudge theory basically takes the nurture sort of route, right? Or it has a very, very weird sort of idea of nature, right? Like in the lens of nudge theory, right? We are naturally vulnerable to having our brains hacked, right? It's very soft social constructivism, right? And the freaking language of this, the choice architecture. I first came across this phrase, I think, on I think Scrump Monkey was talking about it. He had this phrase, the echoing Bane from The Dark Knight. The choice environment has been altered. Pray I do not alter it further. Which is like, it's totally, man. Scrump comes up with some fucking banger lines.
He's really good at words. That's one of the things that I've always liked about him, and it's why I'm still friends with him. Is he's just so witty and clever to talk to. He's fun.
So core examples of nudge theory are default rules that people tend to stick with preset options. This is just basically known as habituation. So setting those defaults wisely, who determines what is wise in this? Well, of course they do, right? The government does, right?
Yeah.
Can improve outcomes. For example, organ donation rates are higher in opt-out systems than opt-in ones, right? You can see this kind of slimy sort of framing in so much government policy now, right? Now, okay, they would basically say, well, if you care so much about like not having your organs harvested after you die, just opt out. What about someone who isn't aware of it, right? What about someone who, can't navigate the healthcare system to say that it's an opt out, right? You're not giving people the information, right? The way this tends to be done is they just change it in the background. Framing. How choices are presented matters. How your choices are presented. Oh, I just hate this so much. Right?
Speaking of choices, Jason Kuna, the No White Guilt guy with us tonight in the chat, he sent us $10, Chris, and he says, "Ooh, so many choices."
So many choices.
Thanks, Jason.
Oh, I am literally bombarded.
Ooh, so many choices.
So many choices, right? So how choices are presented matters. For example, highlighting losses rather than gains can motivate action, right? This is just lying to people, right? This is just framing, right? I love the sort of deep assumption of this is that everything really is a lie, right? So all that matters is how you lie to people, right? It's you're just lying to people, right? You're just lying very craftily, right? Social influence. People are swayed by what others do, so signaling social norms can nudge behavior. And I think this is why, right? I mean, you're of the age years to remember when we were growing up and the anti-drug thing was all on. And they'd be like, if all of your friends like jumped off a cliff, would you do it as well? If all your friends decided like smoking crack was cool, would you do it as well? I mean, in my case, I guess the answer was yes. But, and whereas now there is this big influence that the government pushes towards, well, all of your neighbors are getting the vaccine, right? You should get it as well, right? Like, I hate it. I hate it so much. And it's very anti-free will, right? You're not you're not a person. Again, to go back to this tweet, this is the new model of governance. You are no longer a person, just a part of an undifferentiated mass to be nudged and goaded by policy goals that you have zero input into, like a farm animal goaded with shock prods and treats into the slaughterhouse. One of my favorite tweets.
Ooh,
I think
that's pretty good.
Thank you very much. The book's central thesis is that since some form of choice architecture is inevitable, it should be designed intentionally to improve well-being rather than left to chance or exploited by private interests, right? This makes me think of the meme where like Frodo's holding up Bilbo is holding up the ring, and he's like, well, after all, why shouldn't I? Because it's wrong, because it's morally wrong, you amoral bastards, right? And they'd be like, isn't it morally wrong that like we let people like smoke and drink? No, it's called free will. Fuck off, right? Like, I realize it's more complicated than that, but I just really dislike the slimy way in which this is done, right? Now, of course, there have been criticisms, of course. While nudge has been influential, leading to nudge units in governments worldwide, for example, the infamous UK's Behavioural Insights team. How do you feel being just a bunch of behaviours into which the government has insights? Oh my God, it's so dehumanising. Its approach has faced significant critique from various perspectives. 1, ethical concerns. Critics argue that nudges, even if subtle, undermine autonomy by exploiting cognitive biases rather than fostering informed decision-making. It is seen as a form of psychological trickery, which it is, raising questions about consent. Do people know they're being nudged? Well, I imagine the kind of people who came up with this don't really care, right? Because again, they just view as a sort of undifferentiated mass of urges without a soul. Right, and this is one of the problems with abandoning
and also
Christianity.
It's important to note, not just did they view that we don't have any intrinsic spiritual or metaphysical value, they also don't care. They don't care about the well-being of anything other than, can we get the ideal, whatever utopia or concept or whatever it is they think they can shape out of all of this, even if it's just money or a, ANCAP libertopia or mega global communism or whatever. Like, they don't care about anything about the well-being of a religion, the well-being of an ethnicity, the well-being of a community that's been around for 800 years. Like, they don't care. They don't care if all of that gets destroyed. In fact, a lot of times they want all that stuff to be destroyed because it'll make what they want to do easier.
Right, but yes, they just want a better society, right? They want more healthy outcomes, right?
Well, hey, they can talk to my friend Chippy. Ardent, go warm up Chippy. They need to have a conversation. While we have a short break, we did get another paid chat from Arrakeen, a Green Moon. Arrakeen, for $3 asks us another question on entropy. Do you think people have gone blind to the idea that everyone would see things like they do, ignoring the concept of the alien perspective? How other beast or man use the alien perspective? Do I think they have gone blind to the idea that everyone would see things like they do? I think that one of the things that makes these big-brained, manipulative, we can change and make a new man people, I think one of their blind spots is exactly that. I think that they are blind. And I don't know if this is what you're asking or not, because I don't really understand your question, the way it's phrased. But if you're asking, do I think that they are blind to everyone seeing things like they do? Yes, I do. I think they really are blind. Like, I think they don't see just how much of a failure this approach actually is. I don't think they see that. I don't think that they can.
Also, Ratfun King said that John Stuart Mill covered this idea in Utilitarianism, the Sanction of Utility section. Is Utilitarianism a book? I have not read enough. Mill. What was the last one? Was it Treatise on Government? Was that Mill? It's been a while. Thank you, Ratfun King. I'll look that up. If Ratfun King is correct, then this argument is not new, which would make sense, because philosophically speaking, there is sort of this big argument about, like, when should you intervene in a person, right? But it's, I don't know, with government, it just seems much more. I mean, if you were to intervene in the behavior of a person, like, so say you had a friend who was like massively addicted to heroin or something like that, right? You wouldn't sort of slyly alter the entire environment around them without telling them, right? In an attempt to get them to stop that behavior, right? You would engage with them frankly, and you'd be like, look, this shit is killing you. You've got to stop. I want to, like, help you, right? Because if you did do that, right, if you manipulated them and if you lied to them and if you, like, altered, like, all this stuff, and they ever found out, they would never trust you again.
Yeah.
And this is what has happened to myself and a lot of other people with government. I do not trust them because I
Right.
have no idea whether they are lying or not, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if they're lying to me for the best possible reason. Oh, we're just
Right.
lying to help you. You're
It's-
still fucking lying. Stop it.
It's one of the reasons that we have this trope of boys really not liking their mothers, because mothers often, weak, bad mothers are the negative aspect of femininity, the manipulation, the being coy, the not saying what you actually mean. Oftentimes, because we live in an era of broken families and absent fathers and shit like that, because of myriad reasons, you have a lot of men who resent their mothers because their mothers try to guide and shape their sons this way, and it doesn't work, and it ends up destroying the relationship, that mother-son bond. And I've many of the young men I've talked to resent or even openly hate their mothers because of this shit.
Yeah. Well, this is why you need.
It's sad.
You need fathers.
That's why you need a good father, and you also need a good mother. Like, having bitchy, awful mother sucks. Like, thank God I have a good mother. Good Lord.
Right. So back to the summary.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Grok. Another concern is paternalism overreach. Despite the libertarian label, I mean, libertarian paternalism. Oh my God, it's like free market communism, right? Like, it's just such a retarded idea, right? Some see it as a slippery slope towards more coercive policies. Well, that is certainly true, right?
Yeah.
If COVID sort of demonstrated anything, it is this exact thing, right? Like the iron hand in the velvet glove, as it were. You know what I mean? Right? Only soft and cuddly at first to get all the people who will be persuaded by the soft and cuddlies, and then the fucking truncheon comes out, right? Who decides what's good for people? Indeed. And what prevents those in power from nudging for their own interests rather than the public's? Yes, thank you very much, Grok. That basically concisely summarizes what I'm getting at. Efficacy and evidence, limited impact. Studies have shown. Oh, well, if a study has shown it, fucking.
Oh my.
I hate this phrase so much now, right? Studies have shown that nudges often produce small or short-term effects, insufficient for tackling complex issues like climate change or obesity. Climate change can fuck off. For example, a 2017 meta-analysis found that nudges work best in controlled settings, but falter in messy real-world context. Now, I could believe this, right? Because, social sciences, so much of that stuff is just different ways to lie to people, right? They'll, like, stuff like the Milgram experiment, they set up these sort of like ideal kind of like, boxes or, controlled environments, and then they just like lie to people. And they frequently wind up traumatizing people by doing this, by the way, right? It's highly, highly unethical. In the real world, it's much messier. Critics like behavioral scientist Gerd Gigerenzer argue that nudges are overhyped compared to alternatives like education or structural change, which address root causes rather than symptoms. Okay. And again, this sounds like the kind of thing where, you go to a government department and you're like, oh, how about we give you more control over stuff, right? How many government departments are like, oh, no, don't give us more control, right? They just love it, right? Because this paternalistic sort of urge is baked in. There's a lack of democratic accountability through a lack of transparency. Nudge policies are often implemented quietly, for example, by changing defaults, by changing the choice environment without fanfare, which can bypass public debate or scrutiny. Yes, they do this a lot. This raises questions about legitimacy in democratic societies. Yes, indeed it does.
Yeah, and this is what they call pork barrel policy, which is kind of what we've had for all of our lives. This is why legislation is so thick, obtuse, and enormous, is because everybody wants their stuff to get in there, and they don't want anybody to know about it. So it's like, oh, well, we passed a bill called giving money to children. Okay, well, you see on page 158, it's actually you give money to children, but it's laced with LSD because they want to experiment on your kids. And also in that policy is giving money to Drag Queen Story Hour. Like that's what our laws are, and that's why people don't trust government and think everything is fake and gay now, because we've all learned this stuff now.
Yes, because the slicing off children's genitals bill just doesn't sound.
It doesn't sound as good, right?
It doesn't sound as good, right?
Right.
And of course, there is elite bias. The approach assumes that policymakers or experts know what's best, potentially sidelining diverse perspectives or cultural views of the nudged population and potentially pissing them off. 4, philosophical objections. Dehumanization. Some philosophers like Mark D. White argue that nudging treats people as predictable machines rather than rational agents capable of self-reflection and growth. Indeed. Critics from libertarian circles contend that even non-coercive nudges erode personal responsibility and the dignity of making one's own mistakes. Indeed. Right?
Indeed, it does.
You
well
never
said,
learn.
Grok. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Then there are the practical challenges. Unintended consequences. Poorly designed nudges can backfire. For example, energy usage feedback might discourage conservation if people see that they are already below average, a phenomenon called the boomerang effect, right? This is, or perverse outcomes is what this is basically known in the social sciences. You try and do a thing and you get the opposite result. And of course, what works in one cultural demographic may fail in another, limiting universal applicability. And because our current crop of elites are so inured with the idea that everybody is the same, like right up until the point where everyone isn't the same because you have to give one group of people like extra gibs, this is a real sticking point, I think, right? Political critiques. Left-leaning critics argue that nudging aligns with neoliberalism by shifting responsibility onto individuals rather than addressing systemic issues. For example, nudging people to save for retirement instead of fixing inadequate pension systems or reforming the money supply. But, I digress. And on the right, some view it as government overreach, even if subtle, preferring market-driven solutions over behavioral tinkering. And it's had very mixed results. Basically, right, like, it's one of these like new fads in the social sciences that is too good to be true, and it just leans again into this idea. I think we're probably going to see a lot more of this stuff, because just this idea that the government should rule through hard power is what I was thinking about this the other day. I think one of the great weaknesses of the elites in democratic countries is that they have to see themselves as good. Right. And this actually quite severely limits what it is they can do. Right. They are not the kind of people that could look at themselves in the mirror if they just went out and started like bundling people en masse into camps. Right. Although, I don't know, maybe they could justify that.
I think we might be getting there with some of them, because look at the way that the police operate in cities in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
It's basically literally the Stasi from old school East Germany.
Yep.
Like,
are you praying in your head?
It's like, are you praying in your head? Gulag. Oh, yeah. Are you loudly saying you don't like what the government's doing? Gulag. Oh, did you say something? Did you post a meme on Facebook that says you don't like what the government is doing to you? Gulag.
What I meant more is that they have to do the totalitarian tiptoe, right? They have to be nudged, to coin a phrase, like to get ever closer, right? If you just went up to them and like, right, everyone in the office, right, it's a new day now, we're going to like just start rounding up people in the street. They'd be like, no, wait, we're the good guys, right? So they have to be sort of carefully managed, massaged, and moved towards this outcome, right? And this sort of limits the rate of change. And maybe that was not as insightful an observation as I thought. Now, when it comes to reactance, which is basically blowback, which is sort of basically the sphere I live in now, it is especially likely when the nudge is too obvious or feels manipulative. Right, always. The target audience values their independence or distrusts the source. For example, government or corporations. They have made their own bed in this regard. No one trusts them. It's one thing to just lie to someone, but to lie to someone for your own benefit and then lie about the fact that it's for your benefit, right? This is the way that you destroy trust.
Yeah.
And the behavior being nudged conflicts with personal identity or deeply held beliefs. Well, if those beliefs are Christianity, then perhaps you have considered the Gulag. You know what I mean? Now, there are a few examples here which are quite interesting, right? I thought this one was quite interesting. Smoking cessation campaigns. So the nudge was the warning labels on cigarette packs to deter smoking by highlighting health risks. However, research in 2011 found that some smokers, particularly those with strong identities tied to smoking or a distrust of authority, reacted by smoking more to defy the perceived control, viewing the labels as preachy or intrusive, right?
Yeah, just think of the Dennis Leary character from Demolition Man.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I want to
Dennis
smoke
Leary
cigarettes all the day. I want to eat handfuls of raw red meat. That's exactly what this is talking about. That kind of person is pretty common. Like, there's a noticeable percentage of the common man that when you tell him something he likes is bad, he'll do it more and rub it in your face because you're taking away one of the only things that makes his life feel good as a lowly pleb.
Yeah, I mean, or look at Bill Hicks, right? Like,
Bill Hicks is a good example
Bill
too. Yeah.
Hicks is like, remember that thing where he's like, I love to smoke. He's just out, because we're already like quite deep into the anti sort of smoking nudge campaign like thing. You know what I mean? Let's see what else we got here. Yes, some individuals, especially those skeptical of government intervention, deliberately chose high-calorie options when they noticed the nudge, interpreting it as nanny state meddling. Sorry, this is about healthy eating. And of course, vaccination nudges. And the way Grok frames this is great. In context with high distrust, for example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, why did people have such high distrust during the pandemic?
Maybe because
mystery.
Maybe because every fucking thing every official source told us was a goddamn lie.
Yeah.
And they were doing it to hurt us and extract wealth from us and further destroy our civilization. And everybody could tell.
Sounds like a conspiracy theory to me, right? You should get out and touch grass, bro, right? Like, have you considered loving your government harder?
It sounds like you want some time with Mr. Chippy too.
Oh, he sounds lovely. In Australia, the chippy is known as is what you call a fish and chip shop. So you go up to the chippy.
Of course, yeah. We have chippies here too. It's not just the England thing. We have them here too sometimes.
Oh right, okay. Well, fair enough then.
There's a chippy in a city about an hour away from me. It's it even looks like a little English or Irish pub, and they have great fish and chips and all that. It's nice.
Oh, you're making me hungry. In context with high distrust, overly aggressive nudges, like framing vaccination as a social norm, sometimes fueled anti-vaccine sentiment. Man, I went to a lot of those protests. People got really pissed off.
Oh yeah.
People resisted what they saw as pressure, amplifying vaccine hesitancy. Oh, mate, that's a blast from the past. Anyone remember vaccine hesitancy?
I do. Man, that feels like yesterday.
Fuck yeah. Mechanisms behind reactance in nudging. 1, an awareness of the manipulation. See, nudges work best when they're seamless, that is, unnoticed. If people spot the intent, like a supermarket arranging fruit prominently, they may resent being tricked and rebel. And this is another problem with sort of thinking like this, right? Because these interventions work best if they are unannounced. This gives sort of extra fuel to this idea of essentially secret governance, right? That the people don't know what they want, but us people, right, we know what they want. And might I add, it is a bit fucking rich for all of these like government people to be like, oh yes, your brains are hackable, right? you are susceptible to bias. But us, the great controllers, right? We are logical, right? We don't have any of those cognitive biases. Yes, you do. This is a bloody problem. You are just as open to being hacked as anyone else. Two, there's a threat to your identity, a distrust in the source, of course. If the nudger is seen as untrustworthy, people may assume ulterior motives. Oh, yeah. Gee, I wonder why you would think that. And overreach perception, even subtle nudges can feel coercive if they pile up or target sensitive issues, leading to a cumulative pushback. And of course, because you got a bunch of like government people doing all of this now, yeah, giving legal immunity to pharma companies on an untested medical product does not encourage trust. Oh, I don't know, mate. I mean, do you not trust the scientism? So yeah, we're nearly out of time. We got any more super chats?
Yes, we have one from our good sister Dawn, who has already left us because she had company, but she sends us 15 Australian dollars, which is 12 US dollars for 6, so 6 for each of us, and she just says "mwah" to each of you, and she sends us 2 white hearts, one for each one of us. Thank you, Miss Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate that.
And I just refreshed all the sites, and that is it. So we are clear to wrap up. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Well, that's nudge theory in a nudge shell, as it were. Whether governance,
you mean in a nudge shell?
In a nudge shell, yeah. Whether governance, generally speaking, is going to shift back to this idea of, basically telling people stuff, which is what government calls education. And they still can't really be honest about it, right? But at least they wouldn't be quite so manipulative. I'm not really sure. You would think after all the problems with COVID and the COVID vaccine that at least some people in government would be like, this is a very, very bad way to govern, right? You're like, for what is essentially short-term benefit, you are destroying any trust that the population has in the government. And it's not worth it, right? It doesn't matter.
And it's not just the government. In things they rely on for life,
yes.
like civics management, healthcare,
Yep.
Like that stuff is being destroyed too. And don't get me started on how the common man around here in Appalachia views academics in college now. There are a lot of people around here that probably have smart children who would do well going to get an engineering degree or some kind of management degree or a complex degree. But because of just how anti-white and pro-trans and pro-communist all this shit is in universities, parents around here are not sending their kids to university.
Yeah. Yeah. So they have essentially destroyed the very institutions that they were allegedly trying to protect for short-term gain, right? Because they could not accept that human nature is what it is and that it is not the role of government to start controlling people's lives. Like, you got to let people be, right? This is government shouldn't be getting into this shit. I don't know. The current American administration does seem to be moving in that direction, which is like awesome. Of course, I'm stuck in woke North Korea, so how long it's going to take before similar lessons sort of creep through across the Atlantic, but we shall see. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Please check out my video on distributed warfare. I will post the link again.
It is very good. Please watch it. It is very good.
Thanks very much, Iz. I appreciate that. You got any final words for the audience?
Simon's been a very, very long time supporter of mine, both friend and financial supporter. And he loves the work that we do on Thursday nights. Thank you, Simon, so much. And of course, we are joined by the one and only Jason Kuna, the No White Guilt guy. Look at his handsome mug there. That's him. He says, "Great show." And we had a great showing tonight. I think we broke 100 live viewers tonight. It's the first time we've done that in a while. Yeah, that was nice.
That's awesome.
I'm glad you guys had a great time. And the reason why we lay all this out for you, the Thursday night time slot is stuff that you need to know, but we want you to not be black-pilled by it. Like there's plenty of content creators out there that tell you all this stuff and tell you why you should be a doomer or why you should buy their water filters or any of this garbage. But no, it's important to understand the world we live in and the waters we swim in. But it's also important to not give up and to keep an even keel in those stormy waters. And that's the purpose of our Thursday night stream series. We want you to know what we're up against, but we don't tell you that to blackpill you. We just want you to have the knowledge, and we give you the best advice we can to navigate this hard time together. So keep that in mind with all of the content of ours that you absorb. We are not black-pilled, and we don't want you to be either. Take all this knowledge and apply it constructively to make a healthy, good life for you and your family and your community. That's what I have to say.
And could I just finish by saying, right, like, government does not have to act like this, right?
They don't.
Government can turn around and say, look, you're an adult, figure it out for yourself. Or, you're an adult, if you want our help, that's fine. We're willing to give it, but we're not going to like go out into the world and manipulate you like some New York public relations agent, right? We will try and just, be sort of frank and forthcoming and just, try and say it how it is. Now, it's inherent in government, of course, that, there are always going to be like gray areas, but if government, this is the thing about the UK, the government is going to have to shift back to that very hard to regain the trust of the people.
And a good way to do that is if they do actually start fining, imprisoning, or executing people that have been treasonous, that would go a long way to restore public trust and appreciation in our sham of a government we have right now.
Agreed.
Like if we see strongmen take over and be like, well, these 1,000 people get fired and can never work in government again, and some of them have fines. These 300 people are going to jail the rest of their lives, and we're going to execute these 2 guys because they're the worst. Stuff like that would go a long way to repairing the image of the governments again. And I hope that we see stuff like that.
Yep. I mean, look at the smoking in the UK, right? The NHS, right? The original conception of the NHS was that you pay taxes towards it, and you just do what you want, and there'll always be medical care, right? The original interpretation was not you pay a buttload of taxes and we're going to like interfere in your life, right? To balance the budget and tell you like not smoke.
And also, we're not going to give you health care.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, I mean, it's just
I think I'm sick. I need a checkup. Okay, we can get you in about 7 months from now.
Yeah, have you considered assisted dying? It's a much shorter wait list for that,
Well, I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend, and keep heart and speak the truth to all who have the ears to hear it. We will be back with Happening TV at 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UK Monday, and of course, Discord at Dragon, 6 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UK time Monday evening. God bless and good night.
Thanks very much, everyone. Good night.